the Equality Act on the horizon, we're thrilled to be joined by business partners as the Human Rights Campaign announces a new record of business support for the Equality Act. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Human Rights Campaign President, Alfonso David, to start us off. Alfonso?
Thank you, Wyatt. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I would especially like to thank Molly Wilkinson, who's the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs at American Airlines, and Anna Walker, who is the Vice President for Public Affairs for Levi Strauss and Co, for both joining us and for their crucial leadership. Right now in this country, the rights, the lives, and the families of LGBTQ people are under severe attack. We need comprehensive federal protections to ensure the legal equality of our community, which we will have ripple effects on our fundamental welfare. To ensure LGBTQ equality and to protect the American economy, we need the Equality Act. The Equality Act would codify the Supreme Court decision in Bostock versus Clayton County and guarantee non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people in housing, education, credit, and jury service. It also adds sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity to public accommodations and federally funded programs. Less noted, but just as critical, are the important protections for race and religion. By modernizing federal civil rights laws to expand the scope of public accommodations, the Equality Act promises to also set a critical baseline for legal protections in places of public accommodations for race and religion across the country. In fact, no one should be denied service in a retail establishment or a food bank or by a taxi cab. The overwhelming majority of the public already agrees that it is time to pass the Equality Act. Well over 2/3 of the public support these protections, including 94% of Democrats, 85% of independents, and 68% of Republicans. The Equality Act is also supported by hundreds of members of Congress, people from all faith communities, and hundreds of advocacy organizations. And the Equality Act is supported by our nation's leading businesses, who understand that supporting equality is not only the right thing to do, it is also the best business practice. Today, we are excited to announce that our Business Coalition for the Equality Act has grown to include more than 400 major US corporations, including dozens of Fortune 500 companies. The 416 member companies of HRC's Business Coalition for the Equality Act represent a major swath of America's economic engine, with major companies overseeing business operations in all 50 states, company headquarters spanning 33 states, and a combined $6.8 trillion in annual revenue. The 416 members of the coalition collectively employ more than 14 million people in the United States. For example, in Ohio, P&G, Cardinal Health, Macy's, and Nationwide are major corporations that employ and serve millions of people who live and work in that state. The Business Coalition for the Equality Act is believed to be the largest business coalition to ever come together to speak out in support of legal LGBTQ equality. We are seeing growing support from business leaders because they understand that the Equality Act is good for their employees, is good for their businesses, and is good for our nation. Employers care about the employee's ability to rent an apartment, send their kids to school, visit the dentist, and pick up the groceries free from discrimination. They realize that when LGBTQ employees and their family members are protected in their daily lives, it makes them more secure and confident in their jobs, and it also makes them more productive. And tragically, across this nation right now, millions of LGBTQ people live without basic protections in fundamental areas of life. The majority of states in this country, 29 to be specific, lack explicit sexual orientation and gender identity non-discrimination protections, which means that LGBTQ people can be denied healthcare, loans, housing, and basic goods and services because they're LGBTQ. Despite the progress we have made, discrimination against LGBTQ people, unfortunately, is alive and well in this country. particularly for LGBTQ people who hold multiple marginalized identities. More than 1 in 3 Americans, LGBTQ Americans, face discrimination in 2020, including more than 3 in 5 transgender Americans. Discrimination against our community is not only pervasive, it has devastating consequences. There is an epidemic of violence against transgender communities, particularly Black transgender women, pushed to the margins by racism, transphobia, sexism, and homophobia. Black trans women in this nation live daily with a threat of violence, a threat that not only is heightened by attacks at every level of government. LGBTQ people, particularly LGBTQ people of color, are also more likely to live in poverty, to have worse health outcomes, to lack access to opportunities that would allow them and their families to thrive. Discrimination prevents too many members of our community from thriving. And for those who think that discrimination is a thing of the past, I would say look at the laws being advanced today in our nation. In this state legislative session, we're seeing an all-out assault on LGBT equality, particularly targets trans and non-binary youth. Across the country, lawmakers have introduced more than 250 bills targeting the rights and the lives of our community, seeking to make LGBTQ people less equal. We are grateful, though, that we have corporate leaders who are standing with us, who are taking action, and who are out in front on these issues of equality. As I said in my letter to corporate America in the New York Times last week, in order to achieve equality, we need those in positions of power at the highest halls of businesses to rise up against injustice and discrimination. Businesses that have increasingly over the years embraced the inherent benefits of being socially responsible. Corporate social responsibility means that companies must integrate social and environmental concerns in their business operations and interactions with shareholders. It means corporations must define their values with their own actions in its most basic form. It means that they must support their employees, their stakeholders, and their consumers being treated fairly under law. We have seen for more than 20 years that major businesses have been engaged in the fight for LGBTQ equality. We saw this with marriage equality. We saw this with HB2 in North Carolina, and we're now seeing it with the Equality Act. Corporate allies stepping up to ensure meaningful change can take place at the federal level. It is safe to say that little is more American than American Airlines and Levi's. Not only do they represent the best of our country, they also understood how to stand by all communities. They value their LGBTQ employees and their customers. They know that equality is good for business, and that is why they are here with us today. As I said it before, this is an all hands on deck moment for our leaders and organizations who value diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is an all hands on deck moment for our democracy. It can't be that people live in 29 states in this country and are fully protected. Each of us have a role to play in protecting the promise of our nation and the fundamental rights and welfare of all of its people, not just some. We are grateful to be in this fight alongside leaders from all areas of life to bring the best value of our nation to life. And thank you again for joining us today, and I'll turn it back over to Wyatt.
Thank you, Alfonso. And we are thrilled today to be joined by Molly Wilkinson, the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs at American Airlines. Molly, I'll kick it to you.
Great, thank you. And Alfonso, thank you for those great and inspiring words. I'm here representing American Airlines, and I'm very happy to stand with you and to support the big push right now for the Equality Act and to be a part of the business coalition and to be one of the 400 companies that are standing tall for this effort. Legislation like the Equality Act is long overdue. I mean, Alfonso went through the whole list of protections that are needed and why in 29 states these things can still happen that could potentially harm our customers and our team members. We're a Texas-based company, and we've been disappointed by seeing some of our legislators in our state trying to pass bills that would discriminate against anyone. We've also operated a huge hub in North Carolina, and we stood up against discriminatory laws in North Carolina that Alfonso had referenced earlier. and we're standing up against them in Texas as well. Discrimination runs of any kind runs counter to our mission. Our mission is to care for people on life's journey, and we take that very, very seriously. We vehemently oppose any effort to exclude the LGBTQ community from full civil rights protection from under the law. Treating LGBTQ people fairly costs nothing. Unequal can cost us everything. All people should be treated fairly, with dignity and respect in the workplace and in their communities. We will continue to oppose any unnecessary divisive measures that would make our customers, our visitors, and our team members, and I'm one of over 100,000 American Airlines team members, and their families feel unwelcome and or unsafe. So with that, I'm glad to be here, glad to be part of the HRC family. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Molly. And we're also thrilled to be joined by Anna Walker, the Vice President of Public Affairs at Levi Strauss and Co. Anna, take it away.
Thank you, Wyatt, and thank you, HRC, for inviting Levi's to join the conversation today. Equality and non-discrimination are core values to Levi Strauss and Company and integral to how we do business. Over 20 years ago, we were the first Fortune 500 company to extend health benefits to domestic partners. In 2007, we were the only California company to submit an amicus brief to the California Supreme Court supporting marriage equality. And then I keenly remember the summer of 2015 when HRC approached us with excitement and energy for the introduction of the Equality Act. And as they put together their advocacy plan and prepared for the introduction, they knew that the business voice was going to be fundamental to ensuring passage of the bill. So we were really proud that summer to join together with Apple and Dow Chemical to be the first 3 companies to step out and endorse the Equality Act. And so it's with great pride and excitement that today, joining this conversation where we're celebrating that we've reached 400 companies now engaged in the Business Coalition for the Equality Act. It really demonstrates that business is now, a keen voice in expressing the need for these measures of equality to support all communities. The business and moral case has never been more clear and simple. Everyone deserves the certainty of knowing that they won't lose their jobs, their homes, or access to services based on who they are, who they love, or where they live. I mean, it's clearly in the best interest of the country and the companies to pass the Equality Act to ensure that talented employees and individuals have equal opportunities to pursue the careers that they wish and have an environment free of concern for retribution based on their gender identity or sexual orientation. Over the past few decades, our country has made strides in the fight for equality. But as Alfonso pointed out, the sad reality is that every day across our country, LGBTQ people, women, and people of color remain vulnerable to discrimination with limited means of protection and recourse. 29 states still don't ensure this protection. And the solution for that is full and comprehensive federal legislation. That is the Equality Act. And like I said, it's been 6 years since it was first introduced. I can't believe we still don't see it as law, but I feel the energy that I felt in that summer of 2015 that the moment is now and we're going to get this done. LGBT equality, LGBTQ Americans shouldn't have to wait any longer for clear and comprehensive equality under the law. So let's get this passed. And with that, I'll turn it back to Wyatt.
Thank you so much, Anna. And now we will give folks an opportunity to ask our panel questions. The way that we'll do this is if you have a question, hop into the chat and let me know, and I will call on you to ask your question to either one of our panelists or the full panel for them to take up. I'll also take this opportunity while we're giving folks time to submit their questions or let me know that they have questions, that this is being recorded and we're happy to share it with anyone who's interested for the purposes of coverage or reference afterward. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our participants, Molly and Anna, as well as Alfonso, for joining this morning to talk about this important issue. I will give folks another 30 seconds or so to hop into the chat and let me know if they have questions. And then we will move right along. I guess we covered everything. Oh, I'm seeing one question. I apologize. From Matthew at Reuters. Matthew, go ahead and ask yours.
Sorry, just playing with the mute button. Hi there. So what are some concrete steps that companies can take or have already taken to ensure that the Equality Act gets passed? Obviously, statements are great, but you know, statements only go so far. So what are some things that companies can do to add pressure to lawmakers in Congress?
I'm happy to take that question. Companies can do a variety of things. In addition to issuing public statements, we're asking companies to denounce anti-LGBTQ legislation that we see being advanced in the states. We're asking companies to engage with their local elected officials to make sure they understand why the Equality Act is a priority. We're asking corporations to engage with members of Congress specifically on the importance of the Equality Act and how not having the Equality Act actually affects their businesses. The reality is this, and companies communicating to congressional leaders why the Equality Act is important actually has an impact. When an elected official understands that certain employees are not protected and not having those protections actually affect the bottom line, it makes a difference. So we're asking companies not to just simply sign a statement, but to reach out to the congressional leaders, reach out to their local leaders, denounce anti-LGBTQ legislation, refuse to sponsor events that are anti-LGBTQ. Those are few of many. We have a laundry list of actions that we have on our website where we're asking companies to take specific steps to advance LGBTQ equality.
Hey, and Alfonso, if I can jump in on that,
Sure.
We've done exactly that. We did that a couple of weeks ago on, we joined Texas Competes and participated in pushing back on some legislation that was moving in the Texas legislature where we were vocal about it. We also contacted our Texas legislatures. We were vocal and visible in the North Carolina effort several years ago, and we've participated in efforts like that. And as the HRC team knows, they will activate us. I don't know if that's the right word, or I should be saying that, but they'll reach out to us and say, hey, can you weigh in your contacts when you are dealing with the Hill or dealing with your state legislatures, and include this in your messaging of why this is either a good bill or a bad bill and why this is important. We at American find it critical that we do these efforts because we believe that it's bad. It's bad not only for our passengers and our customers, but also for our team members. Our team members have to see that we're caring for them and that we accept who they are, we believe in them, and we want them to feel that they work at a place where they are appreciated and can fully be who they are. And so they need to see that their company is standing up for them and that this is a place to work that's inclusive and that we're there for them. So we do all of those things that Alfonso said, and then we also, show it to our team members, and that's what we'll continue to do. We've done it in the past, and we're going to keep doing it.
I could just quickly pile on to Molly and Alfonso that, what we bring to the Hill, what we bring is the business case, and so it's, very much definitely a values and a social responsibility, as Alfonso said, but I think most importantly, you can demonstrate the business case for a inclusive, non-discriminatory work environment and communities in which we operate, and bringing those stories to the Hill, directly talking to members of Congress and providing them the cover that here's another reason why you need to vote for this, is our businesses need it, our communities need it, and telling that business story and providing them with those anecdotes is, we've fundamental to helping get this passed.
Thank you so much, Anna. And we'll give folks another minute or so to hop into the chat and let me know that you have a question if you do. But once again, want to thank both of our participants, Molly and Anna, and their companies, American Airlines and Levi's, for joining today and being such great partners with HRC in the fight for the Equality Act. Seeing no additional questions, I'll once again thank you to everyone who joined, both participants and members of the media. This recording will be available upon request for us to distribute for reference or coverage if you would like it. So let me know, please follow up with me. And if you have any questions for our participants that you missed out on asking or thought of afterward, I'm happy to follow up with folks to get those answers afterwards. So thanks again for joining us this morning. And with that, I will conclude this morning's call.